All right, European colonization. As we go through this, we're going to look at the different ways the different European powers colonized, focusing mostly on North America. Here's an animation of the different European powers as they expanded throughout the world over time. You see this is the big Russian empire. They went across Asia into the Pacific. They were mostly a land grab. Many of the other European empires, they spread out over the world through sea lanes. Big one here is the Ottoman Empire. That's in the gray. As they expand and contract over the years, you can see they control various times different parts of Europe, Africa, Middle East. And then suddenly, right after World War I, the British came in control of quite a bit of it. This is Spain here, the original one that started it all, how they grow, Portuguese in the green, French in this blue. Over time, they swell and contract. This is Vietnam over here. This is how we got in Vietnam. Boom, 1959, they're gone. We went over there to help out the French after World War II, and they bailed on us. That's how we ended up in Vietnam. So anyway, moving on. Colonization, we defined this before, I think, as population movements where the migrants maintain strong links with their former country. So it's not just human migration around the world, right? This is certain portions of the population are moving from here to somewhere else, but they're keeping the ties with, they're keeping the customs, the laws, even the forms of government of their homeland, of the place that they came from. So the Spanish, it's an animation of the Spanish Empire. They were kind of the prototypical or stereotypical empire builders. They had the 3 Gs. I'm not sure why that's important, but that's on every single standardized test that you will come across when talking about world history or colonization or anything about those 3 Gs. God, gold, and glory. They went about to spread Christianity, their specific brand of Christianity, and they did it quite forcefully. They were looking for gold. Remember, we talked about trade. When the Ottoman Empire cut off trade over into Asia along the Silk Road, all the gold in Europe was going to the Ottoman Empire, which then traded, because the Ottoman Empire was only accepting cash or cash money, right, or hard coin. And then for glory, a lot of these guys, the conquistadors in Spain, they were like second, third, fourth sons of noblemen. They didn't have any right to land themselves back in Europe, so they were going to start a new life, a new world, and get glory for themselves. Most of the Spanish, these are royal charters, meaning the king and queen of Spain, Isabel and Ferdinand, when it first started out, were fronting the money. They were given the money themselves in order to cross the oceans, go out and explore and conquer. The Dutch weren't interested in empire building per se. They were more interested in trade. The way they would work it out is they would set up and they would buy the land themselves from whatever indigenous people lived there, locals, natives in America, locals in like India, natives in Africa, South Africa. They would actually figure out what the natives or what the local peoples considered money or currency, and they would pay for it. They would pay for the land outright. But they weren't colonizing proper. They were building small outposts that was basically a fort that they would occupy, and then they would trade with the local population as well. So it wasn't a kind of a conquering mission for the Dutch. They had economic interaction, and these were charter companies. These were private companies. The Dutch East India Company and the Dutch West India Company, which founded New York. At the time, it was called New Amsterdam. But when the British took over, it came to be called New York. The French were interested in trade. The big thing for them in North America was the fur trade. They would do something similar as the Dutch, as they would build small outposts and trade with the locals for whatever the locals needed with these outposts. In order, especially North America, it was mostly fur, beaver fur to be exact, in order to send it back. And these were also royal charters. The king of France would front the money for the original outlay to travel and explore and find trade. So all the money and everything, it went straight back to the king and different financiers, different people that took the risk, the physical risk. They would get some a cut on the side as well. The British, they were more interested in resources in North America. It was a lot of fishing rights off the coast of North America, a lot of cod, and then timber in order to build stuff, build houses, build ships, build furniture, that kind of thing. They were charter companies as well, just like the Dutch, British East India Company. And then in North America, it was the Virginia Company, the Massachusetts Company. Different companies had different charters, and that was a royally decreed business monopoly. They weren't necessarily looking for gold. They kind of started out looking for gold, and they found out real quick that there was very, very little gold along the eastern coast of North America. And so what they turned to instead was cash crops. In the beginning, that was tobacco. Towards the end, it was cotton. Cotton was king down in the south. And then in the middle colonies there was quite a bit of wheat being grown as well. Now, their empire, you can see how it grew about a fifth of the world. There's a saying, the sun never set on the British Empire, and that's because they had colonies all over the world, all the way around the world. And so the sun never went down. The way they ended up with most of that was they took administrative duties over from other empires that failed. So the Portuguese, I'm not talking about Portuguese because they didn't have much to do with North America, but they also kind of failed prior to any of this going on. So the Portuguese, they had their trading over here in India, and then the Dutch East India Company took over for them. The Portuguese went through a reign of succession issues where Spain ended up taking control of Portugal for a while. But Spain wasn't too interested in this because they had their own trade routes that were faster and far richer. So they didn't really take that over. The Dutch East India Company kind of took over that. And then when the Dutch were having their own internal problems as well, the British East India Company ended up taking over that. And then after World War II or World War I, the fall of the Ottoman Empire, the British ended up taking over the Ottoman empires administratively. And then after World War II, you saw that pop up there in Africa. After World War II, the British took over like the Belgian, the German, quite a bit of the French, just their administrative duties. And then that kicked off decolonization. And the way the British worked the decolonization was these different places that were administrated, like their government was run by the British. They tell the local people to come up with their own constitution, their own set of laws, elect, figure out some representatives. They would put that before Parliament. Parliament would vote on it, and then the country would be on their merry way to self-rule. That's the way the British handled most of the decolonization. The violent revolution in the United States, the 13 colonies, that was an anomaly for the British. For the most part, everything was peacefully handled administratively the way the British are. So back up real quick, the French with their social interaction, something that the French did was, like in North America, you would have like the fur trappers and the traders and the, what they called the voyageurs. If they married a native woman, that woman would become a French citizen and her children would become French citizens automatically. They still kind of have some administrative places in Africa where those citizens of those countries are automatically French citizens as well. So that's it. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments. Thanks.